the state government misled Texans about the amount of radiation in drinking water.
Last night we told you about local communities that, according to state testing, have radioactive tap water.
But now it turns out some of those readings may actually be even worse.
And that's because Chief Investigative Reporter Mark Greenblatt has discovered that state officials have lowered those results for years, and they've been misinforming the public about how much radiation they were literally drinking in. Fill us in, Mark.
Greg, Lucy, you and I depend on the regular police to keep us safe from burglars and others who can do us harm. But we discovered that the people who are supposed to police radiation in your drinking water and protect you haven't been telling you the whole truth for decades. It says that in the Federal Register. It tells you not to do this. Did TCEQ just skip over that section? She's Linda Brookins of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
I think I've told you already. We have been evaluated by EPA in the past prior to 2008, and we had no findings.
Where Brookins oversees drinking water quality for all of Texas. So because they didn't catch you breaking that advice, that makes it okay. Is that the right way to do this kind of thing?
We were not hiding anything.
So what's going on? Well, it has to do with radiation in the water these mothers have been drinking.
This is horrific, really.
And giving to their children.
And I mean, you're talking about mutation and radiation.
On Tuesday, we first introduced you to these residents who get their water from Harris County Municipal Utility District number 105, which violated federal legal limits for radiation 2 years in a row. It's one of hundreds of water providers in our area and around the state where state labs have detected a particularly dangerous form of radiation in the water you drink, alpha radiation.
The alpha particle, this is the 800-pound gorilla of radioactive particles.
Dr. David Ozanoff is a nationally known expert on drinking water and health. And he says drinking water with alpha can cause problems.
When it hits something, it does a ferocious amount of damage.
And although the chances are low, he says drink enough alpha over enough time and your risk goes up for
the disease that we call cancer.
But ask TCEQ.
This is a naturally occurring element.
I understand it's a naturally occurring element, but just because it's naturally occurring doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to hurt you. And these moms say the state needs a reality check.
That just shows me that they do not care.
But what has them even more concerned is something else we uncovered that brings into question everything TCEQ has been telling Texans about radiation in their water for decades. What would you tell me if I have talked to numerous scientists across the nation that would say that what TCEQ did was bad science?
Well, I guess I have no comment on that.
So what's the problem? You see, long ago, folks here at the EPA's headquarters set the record straight when it comes to how states are supposed to warn you when they find radiation that can cause cancer in the very water that you drink. The trouble is, we've discovered that Texas regulators didn't listen and instead underreported radiation readings for years, letting some water systems avoid violations, even allowing the radiation to continue to flow. You see, when the state tests your water for radiation, they get a number. The higher the number, the more radiation. But then the scientists also calculate something called the test's margin of error. It's a statistic to remind them that the test result might be a certain amount higher or a certain amount lower. But in science, the actual test result is left untouched. So guess what we found TCEQ doing? Well, for decades, they took each radiation test result and would always subtract from it its margin of error, always lowering the amount of radiation that was actually found. The result? Lower official water radiation scores in communities all across Texas. What do you think about that?
Well, I think from a public health standpoint, it's hard to defend it.
He's top water quality scientist and toxicologist, Dr. Joshua Hamilton, and he took a look at what we uncovered.
You're not really getting an accurate picture of what your health risk might be, nor does your community really know what the actual exposures are.
Take Mud 105. For the last 20 years, with the subtractions, it only was cited for 2 radiation violations in 2008 and 2009. But take away the bad math, and it actually had 12 times that it went over the legal limit for radiation. Warning signs that were missed for decades, and the whole thing makes Hamilton suspicious.
I don't see how it could be accidental.
The word that comes up in my mind is cover-up.
And Dr. Rosenoff goes further.
It sure looks that way.
Don't you understand that by subtracting off the margin of error, you have real impact on the people that live there? Because if a water system doesn't get a violation, they won't fix the problem.
I do not believe that what TCEQ was doing at that time has impacted human health.
In fact, even after the EPA published this federal rule in 2000 banning the practice, the TCEQ kept right on subtracting, lowering water radiation scores across the state, until this EPA audit finally put a halt to it 9 years later.
Did you happen to skip over page 76727 of the federal rule? Because right in here in 2000, EPA told you, don't subtract from margin of error. Did you skip that part?
It doesn't say not to subtract.
It doesn't.
It is silent.
I'd like you to go ahead and hold this in your hand for a moment and read the part that's underlined in blue.
I'm not going to do that on camera.
Well, just in case you wanted to read for yourself what she wouldn't, we've posted the entire section of that 2000 federal rule online at khou.com. And is there radiation in your water, if you want to know? Well, you can find that out also on our website, where we've created an easy-to-use searchable database of the state's radiation testing results, covering every water system in Texas for the last 6 years. Just type in your own water provider's name to find out what the state found.
So we search the database and we find excessive levels of radiation in our water supply. What can we do?
A lot of people are asking that question. I brought some things to help you with that. If you have one of these at home, this is a faucet-mounted filter. It's not going to work, Greg. This is a charcoal filter. This also will get a lot of stuff out, but not radiation. So what you've got to do, we're told by scientists, is to actually purchase one of these home-mounted kits.
Heavy-duty.
Heavy-duty equipment. It comes with a big tank. You put it underneath your kitchen counter. It's called reverse osmosis. The reverse osmosis kits can get out 98% of the radiation that will come into your door if your utility won't do it for you. So this stuff works. Costs about $140. It ranges on up well in advance of that, depending on what you want to do in your family.
All right, well, it gets out 98%, but I keep going back to the one scientist saying we should have 0% of radiation in our water to be safe.
This will help you get there.
And
All
still
right.
more to come Monday.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See you then. Thanks,
Bye.
Mark.